Jason, when it goes live on stay in the studio. Why would I leave the studio? When it goes live on LinkedIn, if you repost it, it should go to your followers too.
Okay, I'll do that.
I told the guys that last week, and it was just like it went all the way to 99% connecting, and it never streamed. It streamed every other live stream I've done, so it was probably just a weird thing.
Do you want me to? Do you want me to
What?
look on LinkedIn now? Are we going live now?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you when it's
Okay, you
just
just tell me.
connecting.
You tell me, and I'm happy. I'll share it out. It'll be fun.
Are you here in Nashville, Jason?
I am.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What part of town?
I'm in Franklin, so
Okay, nice.
I'm deep south of town.
Gotcha. Yeah.
When I moved to Nashville, I bought this really awesome mid-century house, actually on the edge of Bellevue, up on a hill, and it was like, honestly, it was kind of dream home stuff. You know, I had
Nice.
5 acres of land, cool, like 1950s, and like we turned it from like, you know, like it was very like country, like the house felt very like, you know, old lady country, and we just went in there. My wife just crushed it, and really very much dream home status, but also super lonely up there on the hill in like a new town that we're living in, and like we don't know anybody, and we're up here on the hill, and we got 2 little kids, and like they got bored, and so it's just a combination of like, gosh, we should circle back to this in like 10 years, but right now it's probably not where we should be.
Dude, need to be, yeah. Need a community.
Yes. One, I totally agree with what you're saying, because I had an experience like that recently in Bozeman. Because Megan and I were trying to figure out like where we wanted to live. And obviously we moved to Montana, so you would think you should buy land, because like that's kind of the thing. But I realized, like, why would I want my kids? You know, my kids are young like yours. Like, I was like, why would I want my kids to not grow up in a place where they could like ride their bike to their friend's house?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm gonna live in a neighborhood. Literally just for the kids. Two, we're actually live. It worked.
Yeah.
So
there we go.
Want to repost it. I don't know why it didn't work last week, man. I'm kind of sad now. It's fine.
It was a good episode too.
So hold on. Let me just make sure I do this right. Okay, so I'm over on that feed now, and then repost. Look at that. It's a button.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So Jason, now that we're live, do you want to tell everyone who you are, what you do? Most people probably already know, but the point of this whole podcast is for us to help people kind of see where people got started. So like with a focus on the beginning, where did New Primal come from?
Yeah, I love this part of the story. So it came from my parents getting sick, and both my parents were diagnosed with chronic illnesses. Both were directly related to diet and nutrition, and I mean, I asked the doctor, like, you know, what do I need to do to not be in their shoes? I thought there might be some genetic stuff going on. My mom had cancer, my dad heart disease, and he looked at me and he said, "Man, stay active and clean up your diet, and you'll be fine." And I went, all right. So I took a real keen interest in food and its impact on our health holistically, and simultaneously joined a CrossFit gym. This is circa 2009. Kind of a lot of this was still very much in its infancy, and it was still kind of underground. And I got really lucky in that the CrossFit gym owner was much more interested in nutrition than he was fitness, or at least it felt like he over-indexed on nutrition versus fitness, and he talked a lot about it. So I learned how to cook. Biggest takeaway there was like I started reading ingredient panels and I learned how to cook. I have an awful sweet tooth, and so my desk drawer needed to have lots of snacks in it to stay away from the Snickers bars at 3 o'clock, and so the one snack I was taking to work with me was my homemade beef jerky, and I was making it with a little, you know, at-home dehydrator that I bought for like $40, and everybody would just steal this jerky out of my desk. So I finally put a tip jar out, made people start paying me, and they did. They put little sticky notes on it with their names and $20, and drop it in the jar, and one thing led to another, man. I went from one little tabletop dehydrator in my kitchen to 6 or 7, and my wife went on a girls' night out, comes home and says, "Get this shit out of my house." And that was it. It was like, well, do we have a little business here? Is there something going on or not? And I found a little shared catering kitchen. I was in Charleston, South Carolina at the time, and I found this little shared catering kitchen. It was this lady had converted her garage into like the coolest little like kitchen I've ever seen, and I was like, "Hey, can I rent space from you?" And um, I rented that space. I got it under USDA inspection, which was also wild because they walked in, they're like, "What is this place?" You know, they're like walking like the side of somebody's garage. But I learned enough about the regulatory side of food manufacturing to figure out what it needed to be safe um, and under their inspection and got it done. So I did that for about 18 months part time. I basically took orders online and I sold to my friends at work and at the gym. I don't know. We were doing a couple $1,000 a month in sales, maybe 2,000, 3,000, somewhere in there. And I thought, man, if this is kind of autopilot part time, what could we do if I actually went and put an emphasis on this? And at the time, the concept of grass-fed beef in grocery stores wasn't really a thing. Like, it was hard to find. I mean, even at like Whole Foods and some of the natural retailers, you couldn't really find like consistent supply of grass-fed beef. And I was making a meat snack made with grass-fed beef, and that didn't exist in stores for sure. And so I thought, man, there's just such a gap in the marketplace for this. What if I went and sold this? And so I did. I knocked on everybody's door, from the mom and pop shops up and down the street to I called every major national retailer at the same time. There's lots of don't know what you don't know involved in that. But September of 2012, I quit my day job, went full time into the better for you meat snacks business. And I thought, what better category to try to disrupt than one of the grossest ones in the grocery store. So that's the origin.
You were riding a wave too, because you kind of caught on to the early part of like the keto paleo trend. I'm sure that, your CrossFit coach was kind of preaching that to some degree because you kind of caught that bug, right?
100%. Yeah, there was definitely like a groundswell of that going on in the world. And
you were early.
Super early. I remember back then we would get in arguments with, we called them the paleo police because, it was such a small niche community of people. And there were all these like online forums about like what's paleo and what's not paleo. And like, I remember getting into like a heated debate over cashews. And it was like, well, those aren't paleo because those are poisonous in nature. And I'm like, oh my God. So we're really in the weeds of these arguments. But, a few years in, the paleo police kind of disappeared. But that early part, man, there were some deep arguments going on about it, but it was early. I feel like that's a theme in my career and in my work life here at the New Primal. Is like, I feel like we've been early to a lot of stuff, whether it was grass-fed beef jerky or if it was like a better for you format for meat sticks or mini meat sticks or positioning them for kids, or, there were so many trends along the way over the last 13, 14 years that, I feel like I've been really early too. And, first one through the door gets shot a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, that's so true.
So I feel like I got shot a few times along the way. But I got the scars to show, and we're still here. So,
dude, that was my experience with food trucking. So I launched an empanada truck here in Nashville, very early in Latin food here in Nashville. And the single largest question I got was, what's an impanda? What's an impanda?
In Nashville? And I guess in 2008, that makes a lot
It was
of
a different story.
sense. Yeah,
it's a lot different now. Yeah. 8 years later, 8 years later, it's a different story. But back then, no one, especially like near Music City downtown core, like it wasn't a thing. Nowadays, it's super diverse. There's lots of people here from all over.
Yeah.
But yeah, like your first one through the door really does get shot. I experienced that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's consistent.
It's one of those things, like, right, first to market or first mover advantage has advantages, but man, if someone else like can just sit back and watch you, can watch your mistakes or watch how you navigate, or just let the market marinate a little bit, and then they can come in with a bunch of fresh resources and throw it at it. There's an advantage to like someone who's smart enough to watch you walk through, be the first through the door, and then go learn from many of your mistakes and do it better.
18 months later, there was a second empanada truck here from Brooklyn that had a name and a brand. Yep, I proved the market. And you're exactly right. That's exactly what happened to me too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's consistent. The thing that caught me about your early story though, Jason, is I worked in a kitchen like this in Nashville. Granted, it was like a little bigger and it was just like I was sharing it with two other brands. Um, so we're a little further down the road, but there was a guy in there, USDA certified, doing like farmers market stuff. And like I watched him go through that process, and that's not like that had to be the most complicated thing I've ever seen in my entire life. For like a small, like one man show.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm shocked that you did that out of a garage.
I
Like
did.
that's crazy.
It's wild. I don't have a lot of early photos because it wasn't like, we didn't have this like Instagram culture, or at least I didn't, where like I wanted to like document the whole story. And I try to look back and look for those early pictures, and I'm like, man, I didn't take enough pictures in those early days.
I feel that way about everything from like pre 2015.
Yeah. Yeah,
People
that's
didn't
right.
take photos. When did Instagram even start? It's like 2012.
I don't, yeah.
think it was 2012, 2013 when
Well,
people actually logged on.
and I was adamant that I was going to build a business that didn't require, or that didn't rely on social media too. Also, like dumb move. I was like, we're not going to do that. We're going to build something without. And such an idiot. But what's funny is that part. When I look back, I realized what a mountain it was to climb, is just to understand the USDA guidelines and get the regulatory piece in place. I remember calling the South Carolina Department of Agriculture and spending like 2 hours on the phone with them about just what to do and how to do things. And we ended the call with, well, if you want to sell outside of the state, you need to call the USDA, not us. But they taught me enough on that phone call and taught me where to look for things. And one of the funniest stories about USDA, and I had a facility for a couple of years before we outsourced manufacturing, but one of the funniest stories about USDA is they have I don't even have one next to me right now, but they have their seal, right? The USDA seal, they call it a bug, and you get a number for your facility so you can identify like where a product was made. But for the seal, there's a different seal for beef, or what they consider meat, and poultry. Poultry has a different seal. And I remember we were launching a turkey jerky about 1.5 or 2 years in, and I like didn't know where to get the art file for the poultry seal, and like it's not like readily available. Like you can't find it, or you can like maybe you can Google it and find like a fuzzy image. But if you're gonna like print something on a package, it needs to be a high resolution file. So I remember calling the USDA like labeling office in Washington D.C. and going, "Where do I get a poultry seal?" And they like referred me to their book, like their like regulatory book, and I looked in, and this is tens of thousands of pages into this book. And there's a picture of it in this online PDF file, but it's just a super low res picture. And I go, okay, well, what if I want to print this on my package? And they go, oh, we don't know. You're just going to have to Google that. Like they couldn't tell me where to find this poultry seal. And I did. I had to like go through Google, and then I had to have our graphic designer recreate it as a high resolution file because there's just no guidance on it. So there's just a lot of that kind of fun nuance in those early days of trying to figure out where to find a poultry seal.
Yeah, I mean, you end up like climbing these like weird mountains. I think if you're like going to go down the path of like building a CPG business, especially when you're like in the beginning, you're like make a product yourself. There's a lot of like really strange mountains you climb, and I guess it's like that with a lot of companies. But I feel like with like a physical item, you end up doing like a lot of weird work. And I think that builds like this body of proof that then like when you get down the road and like things get like really like annoying or like complicated with like the distributors or the gatekeepers or the buyers or like whatever else it is, it gives you a lot more confidence to just kind of keep going. At least that's how I feel in my experience. And I followed your like journey on this for a little bit because you posted on LinkedIn about it, but you guys waited a really long time to get into Target. And I feel like that's like a really good example of like, I mean, you guys are a big brand, like big brand, great product. My kids love your meat snacks. I was shocked that you guys weren't in Target. It's weird. And I guess like, where do you get like the resilience from to like go through that? Like, no, like over and over again. Because I think for a lot of people, like that no eventually becomes like, okay, it's just gonna be no, like screw it. But like you went like
Yeah.
almost a decade with no, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. That's exactly it. It's not that we didn't want to be in there; they just didn't let us in for many years. And the same with, it's interesting. We had a big win a year ago at HEB, and the same story. It was like 10 years of pitching. And you know, two things. One, I think I have I have a sales background, if you can call it that. When I went into financial services out of college, and then I went into software sales kind of after that, and all of that is selling. And I learned about a sales pipeline. And so I think when you have a big enough sales pipeline in place, you can take a no and keep going because there's plenty of other things to do, and there's plenty of other yeses out there. So I think one is just having a really big pipeline of opportunities or people that we're pitching are constantly, working through. And so if you're just banking all on the one yes, then you're in trouble. But dude, you know, I grew up poor, man. Like I grew up in Section 8 housing, and neither of my parents finished high school. And so like I started from zero. I started in the negative. Like like I was paying my parents' house payment. And so like I don't know, like it's kind of like when you don't have anything to lose, what the hell's a no mean? Like every yes is a positive in that bucket that's going somewhere for me. I've never really like no is like I don't know, I don't get my feelings hurt by it, and it's like I'll be back. So I'll see you on the next time. And someone told me one time no is only good for 24 hours, and I kind of hold that somewhat true, but I don't know, man. Like I no doesn't hurt my feelings, and when I committed to this, I committed to it. And when I took people's money for a few investors to believe in this and to bank on this, I was like, well, we're just going to keep going. And so I think like the combination of starting in the negative and not really having anything to lose, and then just I think my upbringing, just being in an environment that requires resilience, I think that helps. I think that helps a lot to be an entrepreneur and I don't know, I could be making anything and I keep coming back for more. And I think you got to be a little crazy too. Like I think most entrepreneurs, you got to have a little bit of crazy in you. And because yeah, what human is considered no, for 10 straight years and then still keep coming, like, I'm here again. And so, just uh, a little bit of all of that is at play, I would say. So that's what builds it.
Yeah, it's funny. I have like a similar story. I was oldest of 13 kids. It's not like we had a lot to, go around. We had enough, but if I wanted to build anything, I had to do it myself. So I started a little cottage bakery out of my house in early teens, hand grinding wheat, because that's what I could get my hands on. And yeah, that resilience built very, very early. Yeah, I think you're from a Hispanic background as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
my mom's side, they're Cuban.
Yeah, I'm Colombian. So yeah, like there's a lot of overlap in our stories in some ways, coming from like Hispanic, grinding young, just getting a degree young, kind of without help, right? Yeah. The difference was I was doing it here in Nashville. You were still in, was it South Florida at the time?
Well, yeah, I grew up in Tampa, and so everything was in Tampa. I went to South Florida, but it was all there, and then I moved to Charleston, South Carolina in 2008. I moved there, um, and but yeah, all my roots are in Florida, and it's all those Hispanic roots come up, and I think that's the other thing is because my parents were like blue collar and like just like work with your hands, hardworking kind of people. Like there was always this like you do whatever it takes to pay the bill. And so, I always watched them do odd jobs and like pick up anything they could. Like my mom had this philosophy that we should always own a pickup truck because you can always make money with a pickup truck, even if you haul somebody's trash, or whatever. Like you can always make money with a pickup truck. And so there was just this philosophy of like, you know what, we're gonna be a little short on the electric bill. Let's have a garage sale. Or we're going to be a little short on whatever else is coming up. We need to go, mow somebody's grass. I mean, it didn't matter. Like there was always going to be something that they were doing. So that's the other thing is like, all right, cool, Target, you said no, but I'm going to go sell to 15 mom and pop shops now. So there's just always like, whatever's next.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
the character piece you can't really teach, right? You can go to school, you can learn the business side, but you can't teach that character side at all.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, you definitely can't. It's really hard, man. And it's so funny that you said the pickup truck thing because my mother-in-law has been trying to tell me that I need a pickup truck for the last like fucking 5 years. And it always comes back to she's like, well, you could have used it for no baked. And I'm always like, I'll say no, that's nonsense. And then like usually about the next month, I'll need to do something stupid, like move like a piece of equipment. And I'm like, fuck.
Could have used that pickup truck.
I went, so I haven't had a pickup truck for the last 5 years, and it's the first time in my life when I haven't. And there's been 40 or 50 occasions where I'm like, damn it, I wish I had a truck right now. So it's just interesting how that plays out.
Yeah, apparently it actually is helpful. So we've learned that today. I agree with you guys. Like there is like a mentality that comes from like a blue collar, like working class background that you kind of can't replicate. Like I watched my dad, and also like people our age. Like I watched my parents go through some like hard shit in the recession, and like my dad was a firefighter, so like usually they work like 3 days a week, like 2-3 days a week, because they have the whole like 48 hours off. And I watched him proceed to take the 48 hours and like work all 48 hours when he was not firefighting. Because shit was tight, I think, for a lot of people at that time. And everyone had their own unique situation. But I think growing up watching something like that, you're like, oh yeah, like my dad just kind of works 100 hours a week. That's just what happens. And like things are happening. So then you like get to that age where you're like, oh, like I should make this happen. And it wears off on everyone differently. Like for me, I ended up taking a like similar path to you, Jason. But then like for my brother, it was like he ended up in the military in Charleston because like that's an easy way to make money when you're 18, especially when they offer you a really big signing bonus.
Yeah.
So I think that like everyone ends up applying it in a different way, but it is kind of something you can't teach. It's something that like kids, like, I guess they just kind of like soak it up from being in that environment. Which brings me to a good question. You have kids, I have kids. How do you replicate that mentality? Do you think about it? Because like I think about that all the time. My life right now is way different than my childhood. And I don't know if that's a good thing. And it freaks me out.
Dude, the same. Exactly the same. My daughters are 8 and 10. And first of all, they're complete opposite kids. Like complete opposite kids. And there's a lot of crossover that we see with like just, the whole nature versus nurture concept. There's a lot of nature that we're like that I didn't give that to them. That's just there, or whatever. But I think about this every day. And there's a weird fine line between like giving them the life you didn't have and then insulating them from certain things, and then also like allowing them to fail safely, and to do like hard things or dangerous things safely. And I struggle with it all the time because they're two little girls and I want to protect them, and I want to I want to insulate them from all of life, and at the same time I'm like, God, I've exposed them to this. So it's as much of a growing process for me as a parent as anything. My oldest daughter has the entrepreneurial energy and spirit that I've always had. I mean, she's like, she'll go door to door in our neighborhood selling handmade bracelets. Like, she's got no problem. She's like, I'm gonna go out and sell some bracelets today, and like knock on people's doors. And
you
be
still
like,
here, Jason? Jason, where'd you go?
He'll be back. It'll cut back in.
Did I cut out?
He'll be back. It'll cut back in.
Goddamn Riverside.
I don't think it's Riverside. I think he maybe just a faulty connection. But yeah, he'll probably jump back in a sec.
Well, everybody, while we're waiting, Jason was telling an amazing story about how his daughter has his entrepreneurial energy.
Yeah. Who was it? One of the great artists of the 60s called it the mercantile instinct. And he was... it? Yeah. And he was upset because his kids, in his mind didn't get it because they grew up, having those accoutrements of life. They had that nice upbringing, and he felt like, he grinded and earned that, and they never got that instinct from him. So yeah, it's that, like Jason was saying, that nature versus nurture argument. Where does one stop and the other starts? And it's like, you can't always replicate that environment, because that environment wasn't necessarily good for you. It wasn't necessarily healthy. Like, it left drama behind too. So it's like there's a line between those. Like, what's a healthy instilling of character, and what's like, we want our kids to have better than us.
Yeah, like you probably think about this a lot. It's like, do you want your kids to have like the childhood you had? Like, no, maybe not. Like, maybe it wasn't like exactly what you now would replicate, but that's kind of how everybody is, no matter what their childhood was like. No one's like, oh, I'm going to repeat exactly what it was for my kids. That's strange. But then at the same time, as you get older, you begin to recognize that there were things about growing up that made you like more whatever it is you are today, and you might like
Yeah.
respect that. Jason's back.
Jason's back.
I'm blaming on AWS and the whole situation that happened yesterday.
Yeah, it affected all
Everything's
of us.
hosted by AWS, apparently.
It's a big problem.
It is.
It actually is a big problem. So you were talking about your daughter and how she has like the same like spirit as you. That's interesting, because like that is, I mean, I've noticed it with my daughter who's 5. It's my oldest. She tends to do a lot of things I do, which is very weird and kind of hard to describe, but it's like a personality thing.
Yeah, so my oldest does that. Like, again, she'll go door to door and sell handmade bracelets in our neighborhood. Like, if there's like a little like neighborhood block party, she wants to go set up a table, and like she wants to be in the middle of it. She's always busy. She wants to be busy. She wants to be on the go. And then my youngest daughter couldn't care less. She's like, she's good hanging out, being a homebody. She's like no interest in she's ultra smart, ultra creative, and like really like just like lights up when she's doing crafts and when she's like catching insects and things like that. But the idea of setting up a table at the community like block party, or like going and knocking on doors to go make money, never, not going near it, don't care. So it's just interesting to see like where like I had that like hustle mentality pretty young. The oldest daughter caught it, the youngest daughter did not.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because she's got an instinct towards art and creativity, and that can serve her really well too. Yeah, it's like we don't always understand where this is all headed 20 years from now.
100%. So I try to just like nurture each of their like natural tendencies, and they'll land where they land. And they don't have to be entrepreneurs. They don't have to be a certain way, but I think like if they do, I can really help them. I can really help them.
Yeah.
Speaking that is true. People, like you're big on like helping like new CPG founders. You're kind of big in that space. When did you kind of see like, oh, I have something to offer? Like, you've been in this a while, you go, you know what, I actually can give back now, because not everyone feels they have the confidence after doing this for a long time that they can actually have something to offer and something to give back to young founders or people that are just starting out in the business.
A year ago.
Loaded question. Okay,
a year ago.
Recently.
Yeah, maybe 2. I kind of kicked myself out of the nest 2 years ago. So I love doing it. And what's really funny is there's a handful of entrepreneurs. I won't name them right now, but there's a handful who have far exceeded any success that I would say I've experienced, that I helped in their early days, that called me to ask for advice, or like, hey, can I bounce this idea off you? Or what do you think about the, and like, I gave them, what I would find is really sound, solid guidance. And there are several that I could cite right now that have like built big companies and sold them to big companies. And I'm like, God bless, like, what happened? Happened to me? But no, like I think that there's a superpower to founder-led marketing, first of all, that I didn't understand for a really long time. And like most people, I struggled with this idea of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know anything. And so I don't really have anything to offer. And when you look at the data, though, I found something out, is that the most highly paid like content influencers, the ones that really crush it, know about 10% more than their audience.
Wow.
10. That's it. That's 10. And that was all I needed. I was like, 10? I was like, I know easily 50. Like easily 50% more. Like I've been kicked in the face easily 50% more than most of these people. And so I got enough inbound stuff. And, you know, I'm not a content creator. Like I don't, like it's not native to me to go create content. But I know enough about the early war stories and the lessons in CPG and building that type of business that I feel like I can offer a lot of help there. So as long as like what I'm putting out in the world is, you know, one, it's authentic and genuine and it's from a real life story of something that is like that I've been through, I feel like that's going to help somebody. And so that's what I started with, you know, call it 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And I got really comfortable about a year ago with it, where it's like, okay, actually, I do know what I'm talking about. And actually, I'm getting a lot of affirmation and a lot of positive feedback where people are finding what I'm putting out helpful. And so it serves both purposes. One, it gives me a platform and an opportunity to help people and you know, give back. And then separately, like the brand gets a lot of like extra attention because of it. And so call that founder-led marketing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason Jimmy and I started this really was because we were wanting to, you know, yeah, it shines light on our brands, but really like this didn't exist when we were coming up, right? We didn't have podcasts about, you know, CPG founders the early days when it's freaking impossible. You don't have capital, you're bootstrapping, you're grinding in that kitchen all by yourself, right? Jimmy and I met because we were grinding in a kitchen side by side, you know, a table apart.
Very
And
similar to your
yeah,
story, Jason, which mine was interesting because as like most people know, was a restaurateur. Like I was building a restaurant company, like quick service company. I don't know what you want to call it. But then like when the pandemic hit, we started manufacturing out of a kitchen that like Daniel manufactured out of. Before that, we were manufacturing out of a scoop shop, which was not. Was it legal? We're not sure. No one knows. We don't need to know. But yeah, you form like pretty great relationships in like that environment. But yeah, it's true. There's not a lot of info out there, and I'm shocked by that stat that it's just 10%. But it
10%.
does make sense because you see like people go out and like the thing that like I always like kind of point to because it's like standard is like there'll be people that will sell courses on like either getting in shape or like buying real estate. And I'm like, neither of these things to me seem that complicated. Granted, like my life is more complicated than most people's. And that's my fault, not theirs. And so like I've been forced to learn more. So now when someone's like, here's how you invest in our real estate property, I'm like, oh, okay, like this doesn't seem complicated to me. But I guess to most people, it's like I would rather like just let this person like hand me the free information and they trust them because they sound like they know what they're doing. So like that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's wild. And again, I don't care if you have a course on canning vegetables. Like again, it's like it's most people. It's 10% is the number.
I don't know how to can vegetables.
I don't either.
So
It'd be a great course. We
go.
should all take it. You know
Yeah.
the thing is the other piece to this in CPG specifically is there was no one really doing that, like offering like real guidance. I mean, like, there's a handful of podcasts that popped up, and now there's a couple of like, you know, there's a couple of communities, the startup CPGs, the shelf-mades, and things that are starting to put together some resources and community and like things like that. But outside of that, this doesn't really exist. There's a lot of gatekeeping. People don't want to tell you what's going on. They don't want to talk about. Even me, like, there are things like topics around trade spend or topics around like cost of doing business with big distributors that I've broached publicly. You know, I've had people call me and be like, dude, you can't say that. Like, or you need to take that post down. That's going to make so-and-so feel a certain way.
too bad.
It's the truth. What do you want me to do?
Yeah, I'm glad that there's a lot more people like yourself that are out there like pointing out information like that, specifically around like the gatekeeping or distribution of food, like whether it be like in the United States or wherever. Like there's way too much information that should probably just be free or like just it's probably
Public.
pretty obvious, and then people want to like hold under wraps, whether because they're like a broker and they get paid for like making the intro, like doing the thing, or like I know how to fill out the forms, and so people pay me because I'm the guy that knows how to fill out the forms. And it's like Yeah, but like it's just some forms. Like I don't know why it needs to be complicated. And then you have entrepreneurs like yourself who are very self-starting, where like from the very day one, you were like, well, let me just call like the Department of Ag and figure it out. Which is what most people prior to like resources like that existing had to do. Like Megan and myself even getting started, it was like I just took the approach of like, well, let's just pretend to be stupid and people will tell us what's going on. Like people throw at you, like we were nationwide with Unify before we like understood all of the acronyms. Like I still don't understand the acronyms. I don't know what they're talking about. They email people. People then inside our organization email me, say like, "Hey, what does this mean?" And I am always like, "Don't know. Ask. Please just ask the question because you have to ask at a certain point.
Well,
There's no other solution."
and every
Absolutely.
major retailer has their own
Jason,
acronyms. Still here?
yes.
Still
Yes, they
here?
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every major
Yeah.
retailer has their own
Barely.
acronyms. What is happening?
I don't know.
It's AWS.
You're
man.
95% uploaded. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
You're
good.
back.
You're good.
I can hear you now.
Yeah, you're good.
I'll talk slower. Maybe it'll like keep me.
You're good. We got you.
Okay.
No, you're right. The acronym thing, it is even beyond the distributors, it goes to the major retailers. And people have like many different things that they I guess it's fun to have like tribal information, but like still like a lot of it just be obvious in my mind.
Look, here's the thing. If you're gonna start this, you should have access to as much information as possible so that you know what you're getting into. I spoke with an entrepreneur recently who is in their local Whole Foods region. And like not even the whole region, like, a half a dozen stores or something, which, if you're starting a better for you CPG brand, you can call up your local Whole Foods and you can go take samples and you can get it in the door. But those rules are different than when you start to expand with Whole Foods on a broader level. And he's like, oh, well, if we can just get Whole Foods national, man, it would change everything for me. I'm like, okay, yeah, it might. But I want you to understand, as a brand that no one knows about and has never heard of before, that one, you have this amount of dollars in slotting fees that you're going to pay. So let's just account for this. And then if you want to run a promotion on a national scale, it's going to be $13,000 just for the tags, plus the cost of the promotion. Or if you want to run an off shelf, it's going to cost 4 times that. And so it's like, let me just make sure you understand, because right now you're insulated in your little local Whole Foods bubble, but before you go broader, you should understand the costs of doing business, and you should have a plan to fund that. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to get a bill that you didn't understand, and then you're going to go sell a bunch of product, and you're going to go, oh, I got this $200,000 PO. I'm going into Whole Foods nationally, and then you're going to get a check for $45,000 and go, where'd all the money go? And so you need to like understand the implications of what slotting fees, the cost of promotions, and so forth. And a lot of times, your brokers are the ones that know a lot about that information, but also like I don't know, like we don't share that information publicly. And like there's a lot of bright-eyed entrepreneurs that just go dive in, and I was one of them. You dive in head first because you make a great product and you just think it deserves to be on retail shelves, but you don't really understand the cost of doing business. And you really are on an equal playing field with Kraft and Conagra and General Mills and so forth. Like you don't get a break, you pay the same fees and costs of doing that they do, and they just have much bigger pockets to then go run more promotions or more marketing or more ads. But no one talks about that. No one talks about that. We're not on an equal play, like we're on an equal playing field, but
you got to pay for it, and it's expensive.
So I just think that we should shine a light on some of that, just so people go in with as much information as possible. It is what it is. There's no way to like complain or bitch or moan about any of the costs of doing business, but it's just like the information isn't readily available. And so I just want to do as much as I can, have as many conversations like this as I can to shine a light on these things so that people don't fly completely blind.
Yeah, then it even goes into like building the decks and then like pitching for big funding. You don't even know how much you need, or do you need any at all? Like there's just the conversation, especially at the beginning, like you don't have that info. You need to even make an educated, intelligent. Yeah.
And too many great brands die on the vine because of it. Too many great like product concepts die because people didn't understand, and then they're chest deep into it, and then suddenly they're like, oh shoot, well, I don't have any money, or I got to go raise money with a gun to my head, and so
And raising money with a gun to your head is essentially impossible now. Yeah, I
yeah.
think that, yeah, I agree with that. And, like on that topic, I texted Jason the other day about like a brand that I was being pitched. And I've started started working on this angel syndicate with these other guys. They want to do something that's like similar to startup CPG, but they're like hell bent on helping people in like a real way. And the thing that I come across like more often than not, and it was just helping entrepreneurs. And then once people started pitching me, I started seeing like a deck with like the numbers on it. And I was like, oh, this is bad. See, like me coming from like the background we came from, I knew like, and I got really, really good advice. Shout out to Dan Stevenson in Nashville. I really good advice from him in 2020 about margins. But I was like, you have to have like the gross margin to support at some point in the trade spend, because the trade spend will not end. Like a lot of people assume the trade spend will end. The trade spend won't, because it's just kind of continuous. Jason can attest to that. He's like almost 2 decades into this, and it's never gonna end. They just keep sending him bills. But like you at a certain point realize that people, one, they underestimate the gross margin they need. They keep making like, and I found that it's usually like just it's little cuts here and there to where they started at the farmer's market with like probably a pretty decent margin, and they wanted to give their customer a good price. And then like as other people started taking pieces of it, as they switched to an outside manufacturer, as they switched packaging, as they gave cut to the distributor, suddenly now they're left with like way less than they originally thought they would have. And the second thing is like they come to me and they're like, yeah, we need $500,000 to make this plan happen. And they have this graph and they're like, we're going to be the next, name the brand. Like we're going to be the next Olipop. We're going to be the next Poppy. We're going to be the next, like whatever. And I'm like, you guys are asking for $500,000. I don't know how you're going to take your, let's call it 30% margins. And you're going to take this $500,000 and you're going to go to $100 million in sales, which by the way, is insanely hard to do. I haven't done it. I wish I had, but it's not. It's just like so fucking difficult. Well, like it's crazy to listen to that story and that pitch from the other side, where I'm like, oh, I was delusional once, but like not anymore.
It's the blind enthusiasm serves you because you don't know you don't have any limitations. So I think that's like a superpower that they should hold on to.
100%.
And you should also acknowledge how difficult it is, because the leaps from like nothing to a million, you can bulldoze your way into that, or you can go from 1 to 5, which by the way, like 95% of small businesses never hit $5 million. So it's really hard to get to 5. Let's just acknowledge that. But like the leap from like 1 to 5 is a leap. And then the leap from like 5 to 15 is a leap. Everything after that is like, holy cow. Like to continue to scale and to go 30, 40, 60, 80, like that is really, really difficult. It also requires a lot of money. And the way CPG is built today, and so you have to have a funding mechanism, whether that's, you have an incredible D2C business that kicks out cash that can fund your retail business. So, or if it's like you have some like 75% gross margin that just, you can just pay it out, or you have the ability to go raise capital incrementally as the company grows over and over, and you're willing to take those dilution hits and so forth. But you have to continue to perform at a very high level for a long period of time to get to that. This idea that, what RX Bar did, for example, like this idea, like what they did is the norm, is absolutely not. They hit them. It was everything. It was timing. It was packaging. It was product. It was positioning. It was everything came together at one time. And I tell you what, if RX Bar launched today as RX Bar, it would take them longer to get to where they got to when they got there. And so it's just, there's so many factors that have to come in that like have to like line up to do it. So to your point, Jimmy, like you have to, the margin piece is incredibly important, and you're not going to there are economies of scale that you can unlock over time that can improve it, but you can't start at 30. Like you can't start at 30 and be hopeful that, oh, well, once I get to X, I'll be at 50. Like it just, I've never seen it happen.
Yeah, I stick to that, and I also stick to the fact that like anyone out there right now listening to this podcast could go and say like, okay, well, where does my brand head if I was to run it for like 100 years? Like if I in 100 years from now, like what could my food company be? Because I always like to point to the fact that like there are people with like generational food brands. They make a lot of money. They do really, really well. And so it is possible to build this like sustainable, amazing business over time. Um, you can get a lot of cool information from like public financials. And like if you look at the gross margin of like someone who's like a mature, large company, their gross margins are really high. Like they just really are. And it's not from economies of scale. It's well, it is, but it's also from just simply your consumer values your product. Like I think people are too afraid to price their product where like it should be. And like, yeah, it's really expensive to buy stuff at the grocery store, but these days, and Daniel, maybe you had made this point to me before, but like people are more interested. It was on the last podcast. People are more interested in quality now than like necessarily cheap calories. And I think that more and more people are going to shift to saying like, oh, I'd like to eat like, I'm trying to eat less food anyways. Maybe I should just eat better food. And maybe the better food costs a little bit more. But I think if like you make that proposition to the consumer and then they say like, oh, I do love that. Like, this product you sell, Jason, is a perfect example of that because you guys' meat sticks are not cheap. I know this. So I shop at Costco and buy them. But like the value is there, right? Like the innovation factor is there. It's grass fed. It's really good for you. My kids love them. Like there was all of these things that lined up to build a value proposition to where, yes, you can pay more for that product.
Yeah.
A good example of that for me in my life is I could give you 10, but one, to the meat stick situation, the one thing that people like, because I think meat sticks and the whole concept there, like we're replacing the sugary granola bars and the sugary kid snacks and so forth. And so it's hard to compare pricing because you're talking about something that's full of sugar and bad ingredients. You're talking about something that's high quality meat. With that. So it's a different thing, but you have to teach the consumer that. But like the OG cold brew brand was a brand called Chameleon Cold Brew. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the OG. Like they were the first to like put cold brew in a bottle and sell it to stores. Like they're OG. I don't care what the price of that cold brew is. I buy it every time I go to the store. Like
That's phenomenal.
Every time I go to the store, I buy it, and I have been for the last 15 years. The same holds true for Uncle Matt's orange juice. My kids love Uncle Matt, and I don't know how broadly distributed Uncle Matt is. They're down in Florida and they're in Publix here in the Southeast, but like they exclusively drink Uncle Matt. Uncle Matt is the most expensive. If it's not the most, it's very close to the most expensive orange juice on the shelf. And every time I go in, I go, oh, but the private label's half the price, But like, no, the family wants the Uncle Matt's, so we get the Uncle Matt's because we know it's an organic orange juice. It tastes really good. The kids will drink it, and so you're right. I think once you get, the cost of entry is high, right? The cost of slotting, and so once you're in stores and you have your set and you've got a system that acquires new customers, like every time you want to run a promotion, you should incrementally increase your sales each quarter, call it, and that's how you create scale and better margins over time, right? That's how you do it. But you can't start with a product margin so low that you think you can get yourself there, because it just doesn't work. I've done it. I've launched a dozen.
You'll also
products.
anchor.
Yeah.
Won't you anchor to like a lower price?
Yes.
And then people are like, I don't see the value in this being more expensive.
It's hard to take price too. Like the idea of like taking price increases over time is really hard to do, both to the consumer and to the retailer. When you go to them and say, I'm raising your price, it's really hard to do. There are several products that I've launched over time that I've said, oh, the margin will get better. Like we'll work our way up. The consumer wants the product like this. We'll figure the margin out later. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that do that too. And it is an absolute trap.
Absolutely. No. And I got into food trucking. I had to like keep pricing up every year, mostly because, it was purely inflation driven. Like when I first launched, our empanadas were $3.50 a pop retail. Now they're 7-8 years later retail. And yeah, a lot of it is purely just like inflation driven. But it truly is like We were probably underpriced in the beginning, but we just didn't know what we were doing.
You were for sure underpriced, but also like Jason, has that ever worked out if you
Yeah, has that
priced
ever worked
it
once?
where you thought it should be and then like later raised the price?
No,
Or did the margins ever get better?
No, I discontinued every product I ever launched like that. And they had, and the thing is they had good I was able to sell them. I had great distribution. They drove top line revenue. They created some scale at the co-packer level where I could increase my volumes. I mean, they did a lot of these things. But no, I never was able to get the margins on those products ever to a point where I could continue to justify pouring money into it. You're much better off, having a handful of good, strong, solid margin products and then reinvesting any money you make into growing trial and velocity on those than you are into launching the next thing. And, one good example of that in the meat snack world was I had this idea of a beef thin, which is a really thinly sliced piece of jerky that, like, when you cooked it in the oven, almost had like a crispy edge. So it was really easy to eat. You didn't get stuck in your teeth. It was light. I mean, the macros were amazing. It had 5 ingredients. I mean, it was clean, delicious. Tons of people loved it. I think it's the best innovation we've ever had still today. It had scale issues because if you take an oven that makes beef jerky and you put a traditional piece of beef jerky in there versus a beef thin that we were making, you only get about 25% of the output of the oven on the beef thin as you do beef jerky. So you already have extraordinary oven inefficiency as you're cooking this product, 1. 2, the yield of like the raw weight versus the finished weight was super low. And I could never get the gross margin on that product above like 35% ever. Meanwhile, I sold it into Kroger. I sold it into Whole Foods. I sold it into Publix. I sold it into, I don't know, thousands of stores. And I could never get it above that. And so while it was a great product that a lot of people loved and like it got a lot of awareness around the brand, I lost money on every unit. I lost money on every unit. And so we said, we have to stop the bleeding on this product. And it hurt my feelings. It hurt my soul, to let that one go. But there was I can't make that product be more efficient in the oven. I can't increase the yield rate of that product without adding loads of sugar to it. Well, that takes away the entire value proposition. So it's one of those things that, I was adamant on pushing. We'll figure it out later. It's great innovation. The consumer will love it. We'll figure it out. I've never figured it out.
Would you say the only way to figure that out is to say like, okay, we're going to have to price this product like, I don't know where, like wherever the hell it needs to be. And like, I guess we can only sell it on D2C because on the store shelf, there's no way someone's looking at that price and buying it.
Correct. Yeah, I think so. I think that's one way to do it because your margin will be better D2C, or even Amazon, like Seller Central, which operates like D2C. It's low in the marketing funnel. That's actually my entire playbook today. If you were to say, Jason, start your brand over today, like I don't go to retail until I'm probably 10 million in sales on D2C.
Interesting.
That's really interesting.
Do you think that's like specific to like the product that you're selling today, or like would you give that advice to anybody?
Well, your product needs to be D2C native. Like it can't be glass bottles that are heavy. Yeah. It can't be frozen. Chocolate's probably hard in the summer. You got to ship it with a bunch of cold.
Frozen fish would be bad.
Yeah, so yeah. I think it has to be like, already kind of native to D2C. But yes, I would give that advice to anyone who has a product that would work well on D2C. I'd probably scale that to close to 10 million in revenue with good margin and I would use that to fund my retail entry before I went after stores.
Have you found that like your guys' because I know your D2C business has grown, it's gotten quite large. Is that funding like brand recognition for you guys?
Yeah, I mean so I'm going to clarify, like we could have and always could have done better on our own like newprimal.com website. It's always been an area that we have not done as great of a job as we could do. Our Amazon business is quite robust. I mean, it's very large, mid 8-figure. It's 8-figure bit. I mean, it's really solid. the cost of acquisition there is very low, and you can model that out really easily and look at your customer acquisition costs and your long-term value, and where you need to be to drive profit. And then the other online wholesale businesses like Thrive Market or Hungry Root and some of those really great, what I would say is like bullseye of like who we're trying to target. You get great brand awareness. Those you just partner with them and leverage their audiences to drive trial and awareness of your product. And that helps, like, because then when you start to land on retail shelves, people who order it online consistently, maybe they find a different flavor in the store, or they're in Whole Foods tomorrow and they go, oh, I love this brand, I'm out and I don't want to wait for the shipment, I'm going to grab it now. Or they're at Costco and they go, oh, there's a larger bag here and it's a better value and I can like load up. So I think there's a lot of down funnel impact of having a really nice D2C business. I know there was a couple of years where there's a lot of these D2C businesses that were getting crushed on margin, and they were getting undervalued by the investors because of it. But done well and done right, I think it is the absolute right place to start. You just have so many fewer barriers. And then way less. Again, you can go spend $40,000 on customer ads and acquisition, or you can go spend $40,000 on slotting and throw it away.
Yeah. Yeah, and that slotting is not going to help you at all. Like, at least from the ads, it was kind of funny. Megan and I had like a big D2C push, obviously during the pandemic, and for a long time, not anymore because we haven't ran ads in years, not since 21, not like significant ads, but we spent 7 figures on ads. And that resulted in, I would go to trade shows and buyers would be like, I've seen your brand, I bought your product. What? You bought my product? But it was weird because it was like, oh, well, they've seen it before. I would never tell someone else who had a refrigerated brand like mine to ever do D2C.
Yeah, it's
like I did. I would caveat that with, there are other things that feel and look like D2C that you should probably explore first. That where customer discovery is better. Because I imagine even on Amazon, it's like people get on Amazon, they look for stuff. And like by stuff, I mean literally everything.
Yeah.
My wife buys
everything
under the sun, right? So like, yeah, you will be discovered because someone types something into a search bar. Whereas in a grocery store, even if you paid for that slotting fee, you may get bad shelf placement. People may just like look you over. They don't want to see it. They're not looking for it. There's a lot of education component. So everything you're saying makes so much sense. It's like you have to find ways to get in front of the consumer that don't cost you an arm and a leg to like maintain. And maintaining retail shelves is really expensive.
Well, look, to me, it's like those early days are all about survival. It's living to play the next down. And it's like, you know what? It's like, to use a football analogy, it's like, you know what? You just got to get the first down, man. And like, just like get a fresh set of downs so you can go like play again. Like you just need those continual fresh set of downs. And when you play the high stakes brick and mortar retail game, which I went there first, but when you play that game, like it just becomes a lot harder because you're just throwing, you're throwing 40-yard passes down the field every time, as opposed to just going 3 yards and get the first down. And so I think the D2C allows you to do that. The problem is we all get too impatient and we think we have to go fast and we think we have to scale in 3 years and have an exit. And I think we just have to shift our mentality to long-term brand building. What's funny is Alex Rodriguez, the baseball player, A-Rod, he's become a prolific investor and entrepreneur in his post-baseball world. And I was fortunate enough to have some conversations with him a few years ago. And it's funny, like he was like, Jason, if I can give you one piece of unsolicited advice, it is never stop thinking that you're building for the next 30 years. Like you need to always be thinking you're building for the next 30 years. And, maybe you only build for the next 3, but if you have that mentality, you'll build a really fundamentally sound business and you won't chase things that you think are, that you think are just like, oh, this product's going to change my business or this new retailer is going to change my business. Oftentimes it doesn't. And so I think that's really good advice. And that's why I would take the D2C, take it slower, build good margin into the product, create a direct contact with my end user, get feedback, get market feedback, make tweaks. Again, whether it's through my email list, through my text messaging list, through my own website, through Amazon, get the reviews, whatever it is, but I'm creating a feedback loop. I'm creating some customer conversations. And and scale it to a point where you can use that money to fund your retail entry. And then you can rely on investors less, outside capital less. You'd make fewer dumb financial mistakes. Again, if you're a kombucha brand that has to be refrigerated all the time, like this is a really like ignore me for a minute. But like everything that's D2C native, I would do it.
Yeah, and I would give people the advice, more unsolicited advice. What you just said is like what I now preach to myself in everything in my life, including, by the way, like health and fitness, like where this conversation started. Like you should have this like goal in your head, I think in my mind, to say like, what is like 10, 15 years older than my age? So for me, like mid 40s, like I want to be like act healthy 45-year-old. I don't really care about tomorrow. Like you should have like this mentality that like everything you're doing today is for much later.
Yeah.
Because you start just making better decisions. Like
Yep.
that advice just makes so much sense.
Yep.
But on the D2C component for like refrigerated frozen brands, unsolicited advice, people go to Dashmart, go to GoPuff, go to these things that feel and look like e-commerce. You will sell so much better as a new undiscoverable product that has to educate the consumer. Like Dashmart and DoorDash like changed my life like for CPG because they gave us customer discovery like we never would have had on the store shelf, but it was because of all the same reasons that you're doing well on Amazon. And I would say that like Amazon Fresh can be that for like certain brands if you're able to like build that relationship. It's a harder, longer road. You have to have distribution. You have to figure out the supply chain for it. But once you've figured out that supply chain, doing that, and I think going to like local independent stores and building like points of proof is like much smarter than going and saying like, I'm going to take on Sprouts. It would be fun. It would be cool. But like, do you want to do that right now? I don't know. Like, how much are they going to support you in this like journey? How many other brands are they supporting right now in this journey? How much do they really care about whether or not you succeed? I don't know. But like, you have to kind of find that like places where you can partner, but also places where like simply people are discovering things. And to your point, like e-com and D2C, places where you get paid faster, things are working a little bit better. They can be a much better bet for your brand. Refrigerated and frozen are just hard things to do.
Period.
Yeah, and not to be taken lightly. That doesn't mean that people should innovate. Like we had Joe from Smearcase on, and we asked him about like the frozen things. I can't even imagine what it's like to have like an ice cream brand, and most of them fail. I could for that reason. Like it's just things melt, things go wrong, margins are rough. And they were just like, dude, it's just like anything else though. Like you have to tackle the challenges. So your advice is probably still good. The D2C thing just sucks. Like because shipping frozen stuff is hard.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but if you were the number one ice cream brand on Amazon, I don't know what that would do. I wonder what ice cream sells on Amazon.
Good question.
You know, Amazon has Amazon Fresh, so it could be through that channel, and I don't know. So it's good. If I paid for the data, I would go research right now and find out what the number one Amazon ice cream brand would do.
Someone out there knows. But I think if someone's watching, they have like a frozen or refrigerated product, you shouldn't be like, oh no, I can't do D2C. Like you should figure out the smartest way to do it and try to avoid the mistakes I made, which were multiple. Don't want to do. All right, Jason. Well, this has been fun. It was actually been a really long time. Are you guys working on anything new right now? Anything you would like to let people know about?
Well, we just launched. I mean, we launched a rotisserie chicken meat stick a couple of months ago.
I buy shit tons of it.
It has been our. I would say it's the fastest growing product we've launched. I would say like in like comparatively speaking, like in the first few months, like where it's scaled to and the response.
You see this, guys? This is really fucking good.
Well, that's our best seller. That's the chicken and maple mini stick.
Yeah.
And so that line of Snack Mates products is the first of its kind and the only like kid-centric flavor profile. I mean, plenty of grown-up. 50% of the people who eat it are grown-ups and not kids. But we built it around the idea that like you could give it to your kids too, and they'll eat it. as an alternative to some of the shit that's on the store shelves for them. So we also launched a beef and honey version of that last month, a beef and honey mini stick that is starting to hit retail shelves now. And so you'll start to see that expand. So this year, really, we had just 2 new products. I'm very slow on innovation these days. I launched 36 products at Whole Foods in 3 years once upon a time, and so I don't do that anymore. But those are the 2 new ones. I got something new coming at Expo West. There's always a new flavor that we like to put out there. That's also good advice. If you go to trade shows, leverage them to do something new if you can. Get the buzz of that if you're going to those shows. So we'll have something new at Expo West this year that I won't leak just yet. But really, we're going to expand our retail distribution by about 40% in January. So it's been a year where we held back a lot. We set a lot of things up. We know how to grow intentionally now. And we have some
40% for you guys is that's
big.
a lot.
It's big. It's a lot. So we have a big part of that is we don't have any meat snack products at Kroger. Those will land at Kroger nationally in January.
Let's go.
So that's a big one. And then there's some other stuff I'm not at liberty to announce yet, but it will be a marquee year for us in terms of just becoming more accessible and more readily available at basically anywhere you might be shopping.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's the goal, man. All right, guys. Well, this has been a great episode. If anyone is interested in following Jason, follow him on here on LinkedIn, or go look up New Primal everywhere, right? Isn't it just like at New Primal?
Yeah, at New Primal. Find us.
Yeah. Go find it. Go buy it. Cool, guys. I'll see y'all later.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.
Peace.
All right.